Hey everybody, what is going on? This is Anthony with the VR Game Rankings YouTube channel, and this is the weekend wrap-up. This is where I cover the biggest VR gaming news stories of the week, and we get into some gaming news, some gaming discussion, possibly some first-hand experiences with some VR games, different things like this. And let's go ahead and get it started now. I have to say, this week, we don't exactly have any earth-shattering news. A lot of times I will start it off with, the number one story of the week is blah, blah, blah. Well, we really don't have a major story. We've got a lot of little stories. We're just going to go ahead and bang away at all of them. And so the first story we're going to go ahead and kick things off with is Ready Player One. Yeah, we haven't talked about Ready Player One in quite some time, and Ready Player One is in the news because of HTC China president Alvin Wang Graylin. So Alvin Wang Graylin has recently tweeted out that the arrival of Ready Player One in the Chinese movie-going market has increased buyer intent for VR by 20%, or maybe a little bit over 20%. Basically, what he's trying to say here is that a moviegoer that goes in, they watch Ready Player One, when they come out of that movie theater, they have a 20% bump in their buyer intent. Now, what exactly is buyer intent? Well, really what it is they will ask the average individual person, do you have any plans of purchasing VR hardware in the next 6 months? You know, it'll be some kind of question along those lines. And what they've noticed is that question, a positive response to that question, has bumped up by 20%, and they believe it is directly related to the movie Ready Player One in China. And one of the reasons I kind of wanted to bring up this story is not so much about the fact that Ready Player One does seem to be having this positive effect in China. Actually, what I want to talk to a little bit more is, remember all the hype about Ready Player One, and before Ready Player One came out, one of the big questions that we had is, would Ready Player One ignite this second wind of VR enthusiasm? And so a lot of times with a lot of news programs and stuff, you watch this and somebody will say, will this happen? And then 3 months later, they never come back and say whether or not it happened. And so that's what I want to do right now. I want to talk about Ready Player One here in the USA. And I want to say, look, as good as the movie has been, and it's a positive movie. You know, most people have gone away thinking that it is a good movie. I think it's done good for VR, but it has not had a long-lasting impact. I mean, basically what I'm trying to say here is I don't believe that Ready Player One has provided this second wind of VR enthusiasm, and I'm not blaming Ready Player One. And the other thing I'll say is, look, for Ready Player One to have really changed the landscape for VR gaming, it would basically have to be like the next Matrix, you know what I mean? Or like a Black Panther, or like it would have to be some really huge movie that people just can't stop talking about. It would have to be, you know, it'd have to generate some real buzz, like The Dark Knight, you know, the Batman movie, The Dark Knight. Like when that first came out, it generated a ton of, it would have to be some movie that would just generate this buzz that would last for a long time. It would have to have a long tail. And I think it's safe to say Ready Player One did not have a long tail. It was in movie theaters. It had a bit of hype there for a few weeks. It's pretty much faded away. I mean, the hype has basically dissipated. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that. It's no bad thing about Ready Player One. It's no bad thing about Steven Spielberg or any of the actors that were in Ready Player One or any of that stuff. I mean, we're putting too much on their shoulders to ask an individual movie to try to give an entire industry a second wind. I don't think it really did that. It is good news to see what's going on here in China. It has increased buyer intent, at least in China, and I'm sure it's increased buyer intent to some degree here in the USA. And then also sometime later this summer, we will have the Blu-ray release of Ready Player One. And a lot of people will see it for the very first time on Blu-ray. A lot of people aren't going to be, your average Joe Schmo. I like to talk about Joe and Sally Walmart. I don't know that Joe and Sally Walmart ran out to the movie theater to see Ready Player One originally, but they will probably hit Redbox up and grab the Blu-ray when that hits. And, maybe that will provide a little bit of a boost there, but we did not get the incredible boost that we were hoping for with Ready Player One. So wanted to touch on that really quick. Okay, let's get into story number 2. Now, story number 2 is an interesting story because I was mostly going to talk about Compound. Okay, Compound has come out. It is $20, and I kind of wanted to talk about the price of Compound. But you know what I thought about is, why don't I talk about pricing in general? And, because I was going to get into this discussion specifically about Compound, but I thought, I need to kind of talk about pricing in general, because isn't it crazy? Compound, the price is $19.99, but there seems to be a tiny bit of backlash that is going on where a lot of people believe the price is maybe $5 too high, maybe $10 too high. There seems to be a lot of people out there that they see this $19.99 price, this $20 price, and they're kind of like, $20. If you were 15, you had me at 15, you had me at $10, but at $20, I'm sorry you don't have me. And it's kind of crazy that we're in this kind of a situation where a mere $5 or $10 in a game's price can have such a dramatic effect. So I wanted to talk about pricing in VR. And basically, one of the things that we've noticed, we've been doing this VR thing for a while now, and $39.99 seems to be like the premier game. If you have a brand new game and it comes out for $39.99, a lot of people will say, oh, full price, $39.99. Whatever happened to $59.99? Remember $59.99? That used to be the full price. Look, if you want to buy Fallout 4 VR or Skyrim VR, and if there wasn't a sale going on, and actually I think there is a sale that is going on some of these Bethesda titles right now, but if you were just buying them for their normal full price, it is $59.99. And I think it's the same case for like Project Cars 2, although that is actually on sale right now as well. But basically, you know what I'm getting at here. $59.99 used to be kind of our standard full pop retail price, but in the VR market, it's kind of been this $39.99 thing. And I think one of the reasons for that is we don't really have these full bore AAA games that are at the level of something like Fortnite or something like Grand Theft Auto or something like God of War. Those games command that $59.99 price, and we don't really have that in VR because we really don't have those games very often in VR, with the exception of a Fallout 4 VR or a Skyrim. And so we've kind of worked out this situation now where $39.99 is like this full pop, and then you go down to $34.99, and you go down to $29.99, and you go down to $24.99, and then you go down to $19.99 and $14.99 and $9.99, etc., etc. And everywhere down this line, it adds like a whole bunch of new buyers, and it eliminates a whole bunch of buyers. You get to a certain price, like some people will see a price of $34.99. They won't even consider a game at $34.99 until it drops below 20, then they consider it. So there's a lot of stuff like this, and I just think it's kind of interesting because when it comes to Compound, it's $19.99, and there's a bit of a backlash. And I can remember 5-6 years ago, if a game was $19.99, that was the bargain bin. That was the absolute bargain bin, but it's just kind of a weird thing. But anyway, I wanted to give my quick take on Compound. So I have not bought this game, and I'll be honest with you, price is part of it. If this game was $15, I would have bought it. If it was $10, I would have bought it. At $19.99, I've decided to pass on it. And you might say, man, $5? Really? You're going to let $5 dissuade you from picking up Compound? That sounds a little bit ridiculous. Well, the way I look at it is you have to have a cutoff point somewhere. You know, if I say, okay, yeah, $5, okay, so let's bump it up to $19.99. Now, what if the game was $24.99? Oh, that's only $5. You know what I mean? It keeps going. So you do have to have a hard cutoff point at some point. You have to have it. And Compound is cool. I was really enjoying it. It's fun, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, you know, I've kind of played this demo a lot. Yeah, this is fun. Yeah, you know, it's got this retro styling. Yeah, that's all great. But I don't know that I want to shell out $20. So I don't know. Am I crazy? Am I crazy for thinking that way? Because there's a lot of love out there for Compound. And you know, I'm not saying Bevan McKechnie, the developer of this game, like I don't hold anything against this guy for charging $19.99. He's poured tons of man hours. You know, he's probably poured his heart and soul into this game. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears have gone into that game, and he has all the rights in the world to price the game any way he sees fit. You know, he could put Compound at $29.99, at $34.99. If he wants to do that, that's his prerogative. And he decided to put it at $19.99, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a valid price point. I just decided to go ahead and pass on the game. So, you know, that's that. Let's go ahead and get into story number 3. Okay, so story number 3, I did want to get into a bit of a discussion of my first take on a new VR game that is going to be coming very soon. And this is a highly anticipated release. I'm talking about Red Matter by Vertical Robot. Now, this is an Oculus exclusive. I believe this comes on the 24th or the 25th. It's either the 24th or the 25th. Red Matter will be available. I believe you can pre-order it for $30. And if you don't pre-order it, it is $35. Now, I have to say that there is an embargo on this game. So I am limited in what I can discuss of the game. I basically can only talk about the initial opening area of the game. You get to a certain point in the game and I'm not allowed to talk about the game anymore beyond that point. So I can only talk about the initial level. And the other thing I'll say is this code was graciously supplied by Vertical Robot to VR Roundtable. And so I was able to play the game being a member of VR Roundtable. I was able to check it out and give you guys my first take on that. And so basically, what am I going to say about Red Matter? Well, you know, when I first got in there and first started playing it, I got to tell you, I actually was really disappointed at the very beginning, and it was simply because of one very simple thing. There's no free locomotion. There is no free locomotion in Red Matter. But the thing is, while that would kill certain games, and while that destroys my enthusiasm for certain games, for Red Matter, it is not a very big deal. And I'm going to tell you why it's not a very big deal. First of all, the game, the storyline, the teleport is part of the storyline. It's part of the fiction of the game. There's no free locomotion because you're in a spacesuit, okay? You're in like this, you know, you got to imagine this spacesuit probably weighs like 700 pounds. So if somebody was in some gigantic spacesuit that weighed 700 pounds, do you think they could just walk around free locomotion style? No. You would have to use like some kind of special thrusters. And basically your spaceship would almost be like its own little, your spacesuit is like its own little spaceship. It has to move around. It has to be thrusted from here to there. You know, so moving from point A to point B, you're not just walking around in a 700-pound spacesuit or however much it would weigh to be in a monstrosity like that. So the teleporting is actually part of the gameplay mechanics. So basically the way it works here is all you can do is teleport, and the teleport is a little bit weirder than your typical teleporting, because what'll happen is you on your thumbstick, you move your thumbstick a little bit, and then it opens up this grid and it shows you where you can teleport. And you place your circle in a specific area, and then that is gonna be where you're teleporting, and then you let go, and that basically starts the teleporting process. And as you're teleporting to that location, you can actually control the speed of the teleportation. So you can do a fast teleport or a slow teleport, and basically you just take your thumbstick, move it forward if you want to go really fast, move it back if you want to go really slow, or just let go of it altogether and just go the standard speed. And so if you feel like you have your VRC legs and you're not concerned about that, you can push forward and you teleport pretty quickly. And as you're teleporting, you can look around. You're moving like zzz, you're moving in this direction, but as you're moving, you could look around at stuff. That could actually provide a little more sickness on top of it. But the teleporting mechanic at first, when you first get into the game, there's no free locomotion. You're like, oh man, there's no free locomotion, but I understand it. It makes perfect sense. It's logical for this game. Now, I know there's people that are going to still want free locomotion despite all of that, but it's very understandable. The other thing I'll say about this game, graphically, it is pretty darn impressive. Now, remember, I am rocking an old school GTX 970. I have a basically an entry-level VR gaming system, really, when you get down to the brass tacks. And, graphically, this looks really good, and it holds up very well, not really having any problems with the game engine. Pretty darn beautiful visuals. Everything is pretty crystal clear, looks really good. I think Vertical Robot did a good job graphically. Now, when we get in, so I can only talk about the opening area of the game, like this very initial beginning portion of the game. But a lot of my thoughts about this initial area probably go towards the rest of the game as well. But I'm just talking about this initial area. But one of the things I'll say about Red Matter is, if you are the Action Jackson gamer, okay? So if you want your game to have a lot of action and a lot of excitement and a lot of, bang, bang, bang and zombies and all kinds of stuff going on, if that's the kind of game you're looking for, Red Matter really isn't that. At least from what I've played of it so far for this opening section, it definitely isn't that. Red Matter is more of the kind of game where you want to take your time. You want to explore every little nook and cranny. And one of the really good things about Red Matter, if you are a fan of Metroid Prime, do you guys remember Metroid Prime way back on the GameCube? When Metroid Prime came out on the GameCube, one of the cool features of the game is you had this scanning ability. You could basically highlight different things in your environment and you could scan these different items, and almost every little thing that you scanned, a little message would come up that this is blah blah blah, or this is that, or this is whatever, blah blah blah. You could basically scan like almost everything in the environment, and it was really addictive to do that. Anybody that played Metroid Prime knows that part of your enjoyment was just scanning the hell out of everything. And that's something that you can do in Red Matter. And I did find that rather enjoyable. You basically have to scan all these different things to kind of understand. First of all, it's in another language. You're exploring this space station where no one's around anymore. You don't know what's happened. And you're kind of checking it out, and it's in another language that you can't read, and so you kind of have to use this translator. So that's kind of one of the reasons you're scanning everything. But I definitely got a bit of a Metroid Prime vibe with this scanning feature. I thought that was enjoyable, and I can definitely say that this is a good game for those of you that like to explore every little nook and cranny. You like to take your time. You like to smell the flowers. Now, there's another type of gamer that they don't care about that. They don't want to smell the flowers. They don't want to take their time. They want wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. They want some Action Jackson, and they might be a little bit disappointed in this game. So if you find yourself into that second category, you might want to think twice about Red Matter. Maybe wait for some more detailed reviews when the game is actually out. Watch some more video of it and that type of thing, because it is not an Action Jackson. I don't have a gun. At least so far in the game, no gun, haven't fired a gun, haven't shot an alien, nothing like that. So I don't know if there's any of that in this game. This is more exploratory, more of like a detective game almost. One of the things that I can say that it reminds me of is It reminds me a lot of Gallery 1 and Gallery 2. I really get a lot of Gallery vibe from it as well, kind of Metroid Prime along with the Gallery 1 and Gallery 2. But I am liking Red Matter, and one of the things I can say is if you are an Oculus Rift owner, and if you do like to stop and smell the flowers and you like to explore every nook and cranny, you might want to grab this at that pre-order price of $30 because I think it's pretty solid at, going back to our pricing discussion, you go up to 35, you kind of have a different feeling about it. So at that $30 price point, I do kind of like it for the exploratory VR gamer. Okay, so let's go ahead. Spent a lot of time on Red Matter. Didn't really mean to do all that, but that's all right. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our next story. Our next story is Valve has redesigned their website, and this has appeared on a lot of different VR news outlets like Upload VR, Road to VR. This redesign of their website, what a lot of people are talking about is if you check out the redesign, it basically seems to insinuate that Valve is still very much committed to virtual reality in general. They're also committed to being hardware, to being a company that is going to deliver hardware, which is a little unusual for Valve. And then also they've committed to the fact that they have a lot of games that are still secret and they are in development. They do have games coming. One of the things that they mention on their website is, I'll go ahead and read this quote. They say, "We have some new games in the works too. A couple have been announced while others remain top secret." So basically, what are we taking away from all of this information? Basically, what we're taking away here is some people were worried that maybe Valve has changed their mind about VR. We haven't heard a lot about these 3 secret Valve VR games. Chet Falizek left Valve. We haven't heard much. Have they lost their enthusiasm? So that was one of the things that we were kind of concerned with. And if anything, if you look at this website redesign, I don't know, maybe we're reading a little bit too much into this website redesign, but with Valve, you don't have a lot to go on. They're one of the most secretive companies in the world, really. And so you have to take any little crumb that you can get and try to analyze it for clues. And so this website redesign, VR is all over it. VR is here, VR is there, VR is everywhere in this website redesign. So it's really good news to see that Valve is very much still enthusiastic about VR. I think these 3 secret games are still in development. They're still going to be coming. And Valve seems to be getting maybe a little bit more involved on the hardware side of things. Who knows? Valve might even have their own VR headset. Is it possible that Valve could have their own VR headset? I think it's actually possible. We know they have the Knuckles controllers. We know that they're supposedly going to start selling these individual base stations at some point, possibly. So Valve could be getting involved a little bit in the hardware side of things. I really would like to see, though, one of these 3 VR games. Come on, at least one of them. If you ask me 2 years, has it been 2 years since we've known that Valve was working on these secret games? I don't know how long it's been, but I would have guessed that by this time, we're in mid-May of 2018, I would have guessed that we would have heard about one of these games, or one of these games would have been released. So far, it is still crickets. It's absolute crickets out there. I still think we're going to get a Portal VR. I think it just makes too much freaking sense. And actually, Robot Repair, that little tiny section of the lab, I really think that is a tiny section of a much larger game. And I think we are going to get that. I think we're definitely going to get a Portal VR. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Okay, let's get into the next story of the day. The next story of the day is there is a Humble Bundle VR sale. And this is one of the things I talked about again as VR gamers. We are truly blessed from the standpoint that it doesn't seem like 2 weeks go by and there isn't another VR sale. There are always sales. Is it just me? There's always sales. They're always going on sale. And here is another one. And like always, what I like to do is I take a look at all of the games that are on sale and I try to pick out a handful of them that I think are probably the best deals of the bunch. And so I was going to run down a couple of these games that are in this deal. And basically, I would say Star Trek Bridge Crew for $20. This is a 60% discount. Now, I'm not into Star Trek Bridge Crew in any huge way, but $20, you don't see it at this price very much. Not a bad deal. Eagle Flight, $10, 75% off. Eagle Flight is a pretty cool game. Not a bad deal. Gorn, $15. Gorn is one of the most solid games out there. The thing I always say about Gorn is the collision detection, the hit detection, the interaction of taking your mace and smacking one of these bad guys, and just that interaction. I think they've done that better than anybody else out there. And you know what? Bethesda, if you guys are working on a future Skyrim or Elder Scrolls game that is going to be built VR from the ground up, you need to find out whoever did the collision detection for Gorn. You need to hire that guy away, because they got that right. And that's what you need for games like Skyrim VR. You know, when the swords go together and when a sword hits a shield, you need that kind of collision detection, and Gorn does that better than anything. Heart of the Emberstone is $19.80. That is a 34% discount. And the reason I'm highlighting this, you know, this isn't a tremendous discount, but I really feel like Heart of the Emberstone, if I had to list out the 30 best VR games of all time, I think I probably put Heart of the Emberstone in that list, you know? And so I think it's a little bit underrated, actually. Arizona Sunshine, $24. We've seen this on sale quite a bit, but $24 is a good deal. And then both To the Top and Super Hot, they are both $17.50, which is 30% off. That's a pretty good deal as well. Now, this is all at the Humble Bundle, the Humble Indie Store, and it is, all these prices are good until May 24th at 10 a.m. Pacific. So you might want to bounce over there and check that out. There's a bunch of other games that are on sale as well. I just highlighted a few of them that kind of jumped out at me. Okay, and then the next story we want to get into here is Skyworld. Skyworld is the free weekend game for both the Oculus Rift and for HTC Vive and Windows Mixed Reality as well. Again, every single week we talk about the Oculus free game of the week. It's been a trend that they've been doing for quite some time. And now we've had some Steam games do that a little bit as well. It started to pick up some steam, I guess. You know, it started to happen a little bit more on Steam as well. And Skyworld, they're doing both. So if you're on an Oculus Rift, an HTC Vive, or even Windows Mixed Reality, you can get the free trial version on Steam, or you can get the free trial version on the Oculus Store. You can give this game a chance, you know, check it out. We were quite a bit more interested in Skyworld prior to Brass Tactics' arrival. I think a lot of people, if you're looking for a real-time strategy game, you probably want to go down the Brass Tactics road if you're an Oculus Rift gamer. Although if you're a hardcore RTS guy, it might be a little bit too much of a baby game for you. So maybe you would like Skyworld. So it's a good chance to try it out, good chance to check it out. Also, there is a 50% discount on the game celebrating this free weekend. The normal price is $40 and it is dropping down to $20. So definitely go ahead and check that out. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to get into is I have a little bit of good news, bad news in relation to this particular show. And so what I wanted to tell you guys is the good news is this show is going to arrive on a much more regular and consistent basis. The bad news is it's basically going to be a weekly show. Yeah, so what I'm going to do right now is my plan of attack in regards to this YouTube channel is I plan on providing a weekend wrap-up show every single week. And the weekend wrap-up show will arrive either very late on Friday, or it will arrive sometime on Saturday, or worst case scenario, it will arrive on Sunday, but it's guaranteed to come either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the weekend wrap-up show, and it's going to be one show per week. Now, you might wonder, what's the deal? Why are you doing one show per week? I thought you were going to try to pop a video every 3 days, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, that was the original plan. That's what I was hoping for. Hasn't really worked out. I got a number of other things that I'm kind of working on right now that are commanding more of my time. And so what I want to do is I want to provide more consistency rather than have a show that just randomly pops whenever. Now we're going to have a weekend wrap up. It's guaranteed Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, most likely Friday or Saturday. Sunday is a last resort kind of a thing. And so there'll be that consistency, one show per week, a longer show, more in-depth show, but that's basically it. And then hopefully in the future, eventually I might be able to get back to having more shows on a frequent basis. But that's basically going to go ahead and wrap it up for the weekend wrap up. That's going to do it. And I'll see you guys next week. Take it easy. Later.